Welcome back to Orlando Matters. I'm Keith Landry. We want to introduce you to kind of a new candidate on the circuit, Quoc running for Congress as a Democrat in the 8th Congressional District. You're taking on, I believe, 4 other candidates on the Democratic side, and then, of course, you got the incumbent Rick Keller and his challenger Todd Long on the Republican side. Why are you running for Congress?
Well, first, Keith, I'd like to say thank you for having me on today.
You bet.
The reason that I'm running for the Congress is because I believe in this country. I love this country. And I believe what this country stands for, and I believe in the American story. This is the only country where the son of an immigrant can have a decent life, get a good education, be accepted as one of their own in this country, and then say, you know what, I'm going to run for office. No other country, no other place in the world can you do that. My mother and my father, they fled Vietnam in 1979 to come here so that I could have the opportunities that other people could only dream about. So I went to Seminole High School in Sanford, Florida. I graduated #1 from my class there. And then I went to Georgetown University, where I graduated with honors. And I got my law degree from Emory University School of Law. Where else can a story like that occur? And then where else can a story where someone like that says, I'm going to run for office? I want to run for office because I believe in that story. And what's happened in the past 8 years is those opportunities that gave people hope and dreams in that story have diminished. So what I want to do is I want to implement policies that will help recreate that story and give people a sense of dignity that we've lost, and to help rebuild this country to what it used to be.
What would you say to people about not taking for granted that story?
I could say you can't, because a story is what binds a people together. It's what gives them hope. It's what gives them dream. The American story is what allowed this country to prosper and grow, and the story was about creating opportunities for every individual. But what was also beautiful about this story is that we understood as a society that once these opportunities were there, that we could develop ourselves, that we had a social responsibility to give back to our community. And what's happened when the opportunities have diminished, people no longer have that sense of social responsibility anymore. Because why would you have that sense of social responsibility if you yourself are starving, if you live in a crime-filled area, if you can't have the opportunity to get a decent education? So you can't take that story for granted. It's the greatest story in history, and it will be the greatest story that will be told for thousands of years in the future, in my opinion.
And it's nice to hear people still recognizing it. I think about that quite a bit myself. What are your top 5 issues in this campaign?
Well, it's the government, the structure of the government, how the average person can't get involved in the government anymore. You had Mr. Grayson on just a second ago, multimillionaire who's going to self-finance his campaign. You have the good old boy candidate Charlie Stewart, who's part of the establishment, the elite system. Well, that's one of my main issues, is to allow the average person to get in there. The second issue is crime. We cannot live as a human being if we're walking down the street and if we have the constant fear of getting mugged. The third issue is economics. Again, we cannot live a human life if we're worried about how we're going to eat. And then the war in Iraq. We have a moral responsibility to finish that war, because we went in there, we broke Iraq, and we fixed it. And that's the bottom line. The basic lesson that every child learns is, if you make a mess, you clean it up, because we know that's the right thing to do. And then the next issue, healthcare. Because there are 47 million uninsured Americans. They don't go to the doctor because they know they can't pay for it, and so they suffer through illnesses and diseases, and when it's too late, the cost of treating those illnesses and diseases are exponentially higher than if we prevented those diseases.
So you think we should have more emphasis on preventive care?
Exactly. More emphasis on primary and preventive care. And what I would also like to do is I would like to implement a system of vouchers in which middle-class Americans, working-class Americans could take these vouchers and go into the private market and purchase insurance. This would further drive down costs for insurance and help make it affordable. And if we focus on preventive care, drive down the costs, give these vouchers, it'll further drive down the cost. And that's how you solve the healthcare crisis.
Okay, here's a real tough question. What do you do about these exploding prices of gasoline?
This is a larger issue context. We have to diversify our energy resources. We have to invest in wind power, solar power, and other alternatives that are sustainable and renewable. And when we do that, we can alleviate the burden of petroleum fuel and other avenues. So that's how we have to take care of the gas prices.
Do you think there's any short-term relief, or do you think it's a long-term solution? Basically, are we stuck with the $4 gas?
It's a long-term solution. But I do believe that many working class Americans, working poor, middle class, are suffering right now due to the high gas prices. They can't afford to buy bread, milk, and just the basic necessities. So we do need to provide some relief for the gas prices right now. Now let me reiterate, it's not a long-term fix, it's only a short-term fix, but it's a fix that's badly needed, that's hurting Americans right now.
I want to squeeze in one more question before we go to the break
Yes.
here. I've asked all the candidates about this. I want to ask you about it as well. What would you do to help folks who either have been foreclosed on their homes or are maybe a payment away from it?
This is what we have to do. First, speculators cannot get bailed out. What we should do is we should have a freeze period in which we allow the lenders and homeowners to renegotiate their contracts. That can be done. We should cap the interest rate that the lenders are able to impose on these renegotiated contracts. We should, one, go back to ensure that predatory lending practices are stopped, but also we have to ensure that the people who are going through these negotiations have a certain level of equity in their home to ensure that they weren't in the speculative market. And that, I think, would provide relief. It would protect the banks to allow them to still stay in business and to recover their costs, but it would also allow homeowners to stay in their home.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break here, Quoc, and we'll continue our discussion with you.
Thank you.
After that, stay with us.